What's up, guys? It's Bobby King, and today I wanted to talk about what the church looks like in 2023. Okay. All right, so the church in 2023. That is a broad statement. This video is going to have a lot of my personal opinions. So if you want to take them as fact, great. Don't hold them against me as facts, though, because they're just my opinions. But I really wanted to talk about what the church is going to look like here in the future, in this immediate future, which is 2023. And so with that, I wanted to start off with just even the Googled definition of what is church. Google defines church as a building used for public Christian worship. So already we are recognizing its first discrepancy into what I believe the church is. So the church is not a building, it's a people. It's people gathered together, like-minded believers gathering together, worshiping, glorifying God, and pursuing his people in obedience through discipleship, through daily active reading, and pouring into the scriptures, pouring into their communities, caring about the widows and orphans, and doing everything they can to make an impact in their city, in their community, in their neighborhoods, where if they were missing, people would be asking about where the church was. So, right off the jump, what the world defines as church, I inherently disagree with. It's not four walls with a steeple on top, or a sign that has the word church outside of it, or it has a cross engraven on the concrete of the sidewalk. That's not what church is. At least that's not what it is to me. And when I read the scriptures and I see what God is talking and telling us in his love letter to us, that is the Bible, in Acts, what they were doing was caring for each other. They were all meeting together, gathering together in groups, smaller groups and larger groups for corporate gatherings. But then when people had needs, they were providing for each other's needs. When someone was going through something, they would all help and chip in. That is more definition of what church is, and it is what I'm seeing as an outsider looking into churches all across the country. I try to stay pretty active in all new movements and all of those different things. But what I'm seeing is this inherent drawback to early first century church. You see this model with Francis Chan house churches, or those different kind of churches that have started up and they're like 20, 30 people, but man, they are just at the food bank every weekend, or they are making an inherent decision to care for the orphans in their area. This is a bigger church, but David Platt's church at one point had 0 orphans in their community. Like, that's absolutely insane. It's because their church made it such an important factor for them to go out and make sure that in their community, I believe it was their county, had 0 kids in the system. That's insane. And so that's what I personally believe is the church. But looking forward, I'm seeing this draw back to that first century church. And I think it's because we as Christians have recognized, hey, we've gotten really good and really used to programs. Hey, make sure you come to this event. Hey, I want to invite you to this fall festival. Hey, do you know that we do stuff on Wednesday nights and da 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 da? We have put programs over our purpose. And that is taken from my friend and brother, Chi Chi. He is all about purpose over programs. But essentially, that's what the church in the whole has done, is we have prioritized, oh, we're going to do this program and we're going to do it really well that it converts into a follower of Jesus. Okay, that sometimes happens, but it's not necessarily like X equals this. It's a mindset shift that we need to have, which is putting our purpose first and forward. And that can be done by doing what we see in Acts. If someone goes through the book of Acts and goes through all of the early aspects of it and how the church is built, how it's developed, how it's spread, man, you have a great blueprint and game plan of starting a church in 2023 or revitalizing your church in 2023. So another thing that I wanted to talk about with the church moving forward in 2023 is I personally have started a conversation that is a podcast called Church Conversations. The main reason I wanted to do this was because people define church so differently. For me, it's what I mentioned earlier. It's a body of believers gathering together to glorify God and pursue people. To somebody else, it is a building. To somebody else, it's people that are just gathering together, people in a local community or different things like that. But the conversation about what it is, where it's honestly failing, and I know that's a negative term, but there's areas of the church that can be greatly improved. And by definition, that means it's failing in that area. But then also talking about what the church is doing great, is doing well. And so it opens up a conversation. So I wanted to plug that just a little bit, just because that's exactly what we're doing, is talking about people in church, not in church, Christians, non-Christians, different religions, all of those different things. I'm inviting them on this podcast to have an open conversation. And there's zero judgment. If they're not a Christian, my goal in that conversation is not to evangelize to them and tell them how they're wrong. My job and goal is to show y'all in the church world what other people are thinking about church when we ask them, hey, what is church? Where is it doing good? Where is it doing bad? That is the main reason why I wanted to have that conversation, and to being able to show it and for y'all to see it or listen to it and be able to get an insider's look into what I'm seeing in the community, what I'm seeing in my friend group, what I'm seeing in people that I'm going to be interviewing that I've never met, but I want to reach out to, all those different things. So there's a plug for Church Conversations. But essentially, moving forward in 2023, I think you're going to see more small groups continuing to gather. I also think that you're going to see a pivot away from Sunday school groups more than you already have, not because Sunday school is a problem, not because Sunday school is bad. The resources of being on site and on person is becoming more and more difficult. You're seeing churches, and have been seeing churches for a long time, really pushing and moving towards this no Sunday school, no Bible study, no gathering on Sunday morning outside of worship and a sermon, because you're able to have more of those. You're able to have multi-services and things of that nature. If you remove the Bible study hour of church, I think you're going to see more of that. For this Bible study hour and Sunday school time and section, churches may be navigating actually doing those times as a podcast. This idea is revolutionary to me. I think that this could drastically change and impact hundreds, if not thousands, upon 10,000s of people on a weekly basis. Some of your best teachers are not on the stage on a Sunday morning. They have been Bible study leaders and Sunday school teachers. They are normally niched down to a specific study or course. So you may have one person that is really deep and done their entire life's work and study in Revelation, right? And so they've been teaching a Revelation course and study for the last 20 years. Well, man, that person needs to be on a podcast, be on a different avenue outside of having the 10 people in their classroom on a Sunday morning. So the idea with the podcast comes in because you're able to, one, reach a larger audience, right? If you're doing a podcast for a Sunday morning Sunday school class, you're still getting the same teaching, you're still getting the same education, but it now has the organic ability to reach thousands upon thousands of people instead of the 10 that you originally had. But another aspect with this is you now open up your church to be able to experience multiple forms of learning and education. So if someone's always wanted to be a part of somebody else's Sunday school class, but they're leading a Sunday school class themselves, this now gives them the opportunity to learn and grow in this other area. This idea is honestly one of the best ones that I have heard in a long time on how to revitalize a church's structure on a Sunday morning. Continuing on, like I said, small groups I think are going to increase. Sunday schools and Bible studies are going to decrease. Another thing I'm looking forward to seeing here in 2023 is more digital and online communities rising up and developing. Big churches out there, they've been doing it for a while. They've created these amazing opportunities for people to engage and connect online and digitally. So people are able to react and have conversations and share deep things with their community all in an online setting. So it takes it out of just a Sunday morning environment. Brady Shearer says, sees the 167. That means there's 167 hours outside of your normal 1 hour Sunday service. And with that, that's how they are doing it. They are taking advantage of those other hours in a week for the impact of the kingdom. I think that those things are going to continue to grow, and you're going to see a rise in social media managers, online content community people coming alongside churches and providing that aspect and growth for them. So we know that there's tons of people already out there doing it, but they're normally one person in a church of a couple thousand that really have developed and fostered this. I think you're just going to see it rise through the ranks, just how we did a few years ago with disciple group and community group pastors. The next phase is going to be this online community pastoral type of role. The last thing I wanted to talk about was I feel that we have developed some spheres of influence here in the church. You've heard them out there about business and media and all of those different other things, but I think in the church we have a unique set of spheres that every person in our congregation would fall into after they've been onboarded, quote unquote, from a new member or anything like that. Like, you will eventually fall into one of these 8 spheres of influence. So with that, the first one is media. Obviously, this one applies to us. It's the one that we use the most because that's how we started our company, is helping churches in the media realm. But graphics, web, photo, video, those areas, that is a sphere of influence that churches can come alongside and make an impact on. Next is one of the biggest ones is youth. Obviously, we know churches have youth ministries. Normally, it's the second largest funded thing in a church outside of operations and worship, right? These areas, kids being impacted and changed forever in the kingdom, we're gaining brothers and sisters if a youth ministry is functioning properly. And that's because it's such an important area of influence. And so with youth ministries, this is, we wanted to put it into the second slot here. The third slot is kids. And with that, we know based off of stats that people return to church when they start having kids. They want their kids raised up in a healthy and safe environment. And one of those is the church. It's one of the safest and healthiest places to have your kids learn and grow and be a part of, different activities and how they interact with kids and make sure that they're developing social skills. Church is an amazing environment for that. So I'm now in that stage of life where I have 2 littles. And so people that were in my high school and in my same grade that haven't been to church since youth group are now coming back because they're bringing their kids. They know that it's an important value that they need to return to church. So it's honestly a huge door for churches to gain that young family back into the church body. The fourth sphere is college and young adults. So this 18 to almost 35-year-old range is huge because this is your main missions deployment age group. These are people that either aren't married yet or still young enough to be able to do all the things. My knees hurt too bad already. But essentially, these people are the ones that are your heavy volunteers. They're also the people that are going across countries on mission trips or even serving as missionaries overseas. That's one of the main areas and groups because if they are in your church, they are bought in. I hate the phrase that millennials and Gen Z are leaving the church. That's not a true statement. I don't care what stat you pull up. I know that it's not true because it's a lot easier to count how many people leave your church in that age group than it is to count how many that come in. Because what's happening is if 1,000 young people leave a big megachurch, they're not leaving Christianity. They're then going to another church. And when all of those numbers are added up together, it's not like the 15 local churches around that megachurch are saying, hey, I gained 10 millennials, I gained 8 Gen Z, and they all add it all up. Of course, there are some people that are leaving the church in that age group, but it's not in the droves that the church has been trying to say it has for the last few years. Millennials and Gen Z, and then my little Gen Alphas are just going to be as much a part of the church as the Boomers and Gen Xers have been. And in actuality, millennials over the last 3 years have increased from 21% membership in churches to 39%. We are only a few points away from Gen Xers and Boomers on a regular basis in a church building. It's not about our age group. It's not about the life experience and things we have. It's just we weren't getting counted when we were moving and transfer growthing other churches. And that's a whole other conversation for a different day, is transfer growth and organic growth, all those different things. But when millennials were leaving one church and going to a different church, they were getting lost in that number count. It's not because they were leaving the faith. So with that age group is huge and valuable and important because they're your main quote unquote workforce for all the things that you need to do in the church, and your volunteers, your missions, all of that aspect. The next is your adults. These are your teachers. These are your people that are pouring in. They should be discipling these young adults. Discipleship has been lost. Millennials have gotten categorized as a fatherless type of generation. In reality, we know that that's also an aspect that's happened in discipleship. Gen Xers really weren't discipled. Whenever the world lost the mindset of apprenticeship and internship, you used to become whatever your dad was. So if my dad was a carpenter, I would be a carpenter. If my dad was a machinist, I would be a machinist. And it's because of this aspect of apprenticeship. Once the world changed and pivoted from that, we lost what that sense of apprenticeship and discipleship was. Now, young adults in that 18 to 35 range, we've recognized, man, we haven't been discipled for a majority of our lives. I've been super lucky to be discipled for the last 8 years by the same man who's been pouring into me, who's 12 years older than me, which I think is a great generational line gap to kind of base your discipleship off of. They've lived life more than me in those 12 years, and normally they're about one real big life stage in front of you, if not two. And I think that's hugely important in the aspect of discipleship. But this adult age range from 35 to 65 is really the main area that you're getting all of your teachers and all of your disciplers for your church and for your community. The next sphere is worship. I think that this is a huge aspect for a bunch of different churches. Worship can be expressed in so many different ways. You can have an Anglican style of worship of where it's more traditional and it's more chanting kind of style, not necessarily chants, but it's more in unison with everybody. Then you also have a worship experience of where it's very free and open, and you have people that are possibly even, moving and dancing and all of those different things. And then you have a more traditional contemporary style worship of where it's, a guy and a guitar, and it's just simple, stripped down, and you're doing, popular songs that people are hearing on the radio and things of that nature. Worship can be expressed in so many different ways, but it's a sphere of influence because worship is normally an open door for people to come to your church. If you have good worship, it normally results in the fact that you're going to be having a lot of new time guests because people want to see it. Not necessarily the reason and heartbeat of why a church exists, but it's a great door to be able to have people coming in and out of your church on a Sunday morning. Next is missions. Obviously, this is what we are called to do as Christians. The whole Great Commission, like go therefore and make disciples of all nations, that aspect is inherent in churchdom. So essentially, it's not, hey, if you want to go and do this, no, go therefore. Go as you are already going and go spread the gospel to the nations, right? And so with that, missions is huge. We are continuing to see more missionaries and more people impacted throughout the world. One of my closest friends' parents just recently finished a translation of the Bible in Papua New Guinea that they've been working on for the last 17 years. And with that, a people group have been able to experience and read the gospel for the first time in their native tongue and in their native language. Missions is huge. We know that the Lord isn't going to be coming back until everybody's at least had a chance to hear, right? And so that's done through missions. Last is devotional and Bible study. And it's not last because it's last in importance, but it is the one that is solely reliant on you as an individual as a Christian, right? We cannot expect the church or other adult teachers to feed us. We need to feed ourselves. You need to find people that you relate with. You need to find groups of people that you want to grow together with, like-minded people serving the same kind of thing. If you are all about missions, go find other people that love missions. If you are all about youth, go plug into a youth ministry, right? Like all of those different things, you are trying to develop and have conversations and have skills around what God is calling you to. And I believe that God has called every single one of you to have a calling. And whatever that is and whatever that looks like, he may have not have revealed it to you yet, but I believe that you do have a calling. So whatever that is, pour into it, learn more about it, become an expert in that area and in that thing that God has called you to do. You can do that through devotions and Bible study. And so with these spheres, we think that it is important to have voices in those spheres. You can find them on social media. You can find them in your church body. You can do a whole different amount of things. But we believe, essentially, after somebody is a new believer, comes into the church, they get plugged into one of those 8 spheres. And you need to be finding examples and being plugged in to those different spheres across your church body. So, church in 2023, I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm also encouraged. But I believe that we are in a better place. Not because we're actually doing better as a church, but because I know that the gates of hell will never prevail the church. And with that, I know that we are always on an upward progression and trend because God wants the church to win. And with that, I know that you are going to play a part just as much as we are here at Hashtag Church to try to help and develop, equip, and resource the church. We are called to have more people in the kingdom tomorrow than we did today. We want to make heaven crowded. And with that, you have to play a part in the church. So, looking forward, I'm not scared for the church in 2023. Looking forward, I am so excited to partner alongside of you guys because we are going to make an impact in the communities that we are around. So thank you for watching this video, and I would love to know other trends and things like that that y'all are gonna see and expecting in 2023. Thanks so much.